So hello and welcome to this part. This will be the last part of actual recorded videos, like pre-recorded. This is the UV mapping. This was done in Maya, the native Maya interface for UV mapping, which is what I prefer personally. So let's just go straight to it and watch what is in store. So here we have our complete retopologized model. As you can see, I did in fact finish it. I added a quick checker pattern texture on top of it, which is very easily made. It's basically just adding a custom-made material on it and then choosing out of the color selector thingy checkers, which if you don't know how to do, I guess you can ask me in the comments and maybe I'll make a video about it. But yes, so what I did here was I separated all the little pieces, like every single branch on its own. I selected the faces of each branch, like one branch at a time, and just made a planar mapping from the front. This will divide them into different sections, different shells, so that it makes it easier for me to unwrap them afterwards. So now I already have them divided into pieces, which makes it easier to control and stuff like that. So a lot of unwrapping, which you'll see right here, is done by making seams. And then, I mean, I'm not going to go through actually how to unwrap, because that's pretty basic. I think this is an intermediate tutorial. I don't think it's that basic enough. But what you see here, me doing seams, cutting the seams, and then using the interactive unfold UV tool and the actual unwrap tool to two effects here. Both do different things at different times, and both both have different success, basically. The interactive unfold tool is one that Maya actually introduced in one of the newer versions, actually one of the fairly newer versions. I guess it isn't that new anymore, but it's quite good. It's interactive. As you can see, it's the thing I drag. You can see that I dragged right there, but it works at times, and sometimes it just doesn't, and then you use the unfold tool, and sometimes you need to be very manual and do it yourself. So here you can see that some pieces weren't exactly separated, so I have to still separate them. Separating makes them, because I'm going to keep them in these shells. These shells are going to be final. This makes it very easy for me to just sort them out and just do them one at a time, unfold them. Unlike the sculpting process, you don't want to do like a little bit on one and just jump to the other, a little bit on that. This time you actually do truly want to actually focus very hard on one bit, finish that, focus on that one. At least that's what I have learned to prefer how to do it, basically. And it's just what I've found to be successful, really. And it's a lot of this tree might not be the best example of, you know, good UV unwrapping techniques, because all it is basically a lot of cylinders. And cylinders, as anyone who has unwrapped a lot of things knows, are very simple to make, very simple to make, in fact. And so really it's just gonna be a lot of the same unwrapping. It's gonna be cutting a seam by the side that is less visible, cutting a seam so that it divides right by there, so where you can see the seam the least, I will cut it, and then I will unfold it from there, and just tweak it and tweak it and tweak it until, you know, it becomes perfect. And when it is perfect, we will fix it up even more, and it'll be even more perfect. Yes, indeed. Hold on 1 second here. So yes, sorry about that. Quick break, had to fix one thing or two, and one good thing about actually UV mapping, it makes you spend a lot of time on these very small bits you might not otherwise, and you might see the small issues. Like I saw right there was a triangle, I think, missing, or some error with that I had to fix. So, you know, I had to fix that, and it's very good. A different thing, which you won't... Well, I'll get to that, I guess, when I use it. Also, this is just basic UV mapping techniques, but you want to keep all the checkers on the textures, see there? You want to keep them even across the model. You want them to be even size, because that means they get an even amount of UV space. Because in that turn, it's kind of like keeping even faces when modeling. It gives you, I mean, whilst making it very large in one area and very small in the other, makes the large area and the UV space get a lot of detail a lot easier. The small area barely gets any at all, which is like kind of like the reverse of faces in the 3D view. But if you keep it even, obviously that's just the best way of getting it. You can modify it a bit manually so that it maybe if there's some part which you really aren't going to see, then you can obviously scale that down so that it doesn't have to have that much detail. But generally, in just these random areas, you want to keep the checkers very even, because that's just in good practice. I'm not going to show all the UV mapping again, because it's basically a lot of the same, but I'll show most of it, and I'll show all the layout part of it, because I think the layout part, the UV layout, is one of the most, I think it's very fun, and I think it's one of the more interesting bits to watch, because I think there's some people who do have some troubles with that. So, yes, we are, in fact, going to do that. So, first of all, we go to, basically what I do is I unrip one bit completely, and then I move it off to the side, and then I unwrap another bit completely, and I move it off to the same side, and I kind of stack them just a bit up, like usually above the UV window slightly, just to make it easier for me, and that generally does work out quite well for me. So that's just my way of doing it. You can see it right there, I have them all stacked above, and I mean, it's again one of those personal preference things, but I mean, it's just what I do. So here you can see that, yeah, it's a lot of the same technique everywhere. I mean, I guess it's useful saying that don't always just select the entire shell and then unfold the entire thing. Don't always do that. You want to kind of do it kind of moderately first. I like doing it entirely, just as an entire piece like that. And then if I see any issue areas, I'll just select basically just those, and then I'll just unfold that, which usually relaxes it quite a bit and really does help, I think, with the overall shape of the UV shell. Also, quick like a little shortcut, Maya, if you are in the UV select mode for UV points, you can, if you select one piece of a shell, which is one of the a shell is basically one of the islands, the UV islands, a piece of that. If you select a piece of that, like a single UV, and then you hold Control and then right click and then drag upwards to the right, it'll automatically go to convert to shell, which will just instantly select the entire shell, which is very useful for moving stuff around. You'll see me use that basically constantly here, although it may go very quickly for you because, I mean, obviously, I've sped this up quite a bit because the actual possible criteria. And actually right here, I'm seeing some very odd things right here, like a random edge. That means that there are some issues with the faces. You see, that's what I mentioned, because I wouldn't have noticed that otherwise, except for at the cleanup stage of the model, which I mentioned later on. But it's just these small things, you know. See that I'm missing some faces right there on my model, which I mean, obviously very, very bad, because you want faces or you don't want holes in your model. That's a very, very bad thing. I undoubtedly can't say that very easily, and you need to keep in mind that your cylinders, if you're not used to unwrapping cylinders, they generally turn out way fatter, the shells, than you might expect them to be, because cylinders, if you split them in half and you just put them on flat, they're pretty wide, so just if it looks like it gets really like wide, more wide than it is tall, which doesn't look like it on the actual model, don't get like discouraged or anything like that. It really isn't wrong, it's just that's the way it looks. I mean, it's very, very obvious stuff, but some people might get confused by that, so I mean, that's just fine. It's something I was confused by as well at the start, but yes, so let's just do that completely. So yeah, right now we're working on one of the large sections, one of the quite big, in fact, sections of the tree, one of the more visible ones. And you may notice that, so you see what I'm doing here, I'm cutting out the caps of the little indents, or whatever they're called here. Why I'm doing that is because if you keep them in areas like that, they tend to distort the area around it, giving them not enough UV space. So what I tend to do, it doesn't actually matter too much. It creates a bit more seaming, but what I do is just I cut them out to make it less distorted. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm using the manual unfold tool, and I'm using pinning, which is dragging some. I'm deselecting the UVs I want to stay in place, and then selecting everything else and unfolding it, and it'll kind of deform to fit the other UVs. It's a very, very good way to get even geometry. If you say you unfold it and one piece is way, way bigger than the other one, which does happen way more often than you think. You can easily do what I'm doing here, so that's just a very good tip there. It's a very good technique, in fact, which you're probably going to have to use a lot when UV mapping. I think Maya has very good UV unwrapping tools. I've used these tools a lot, and I'm very happy with them. So I mean, I know people. There are definitely other like UV mappers and other tool you can use, which is very good and stuff like that. But I prefer just using the Maya built-in one, just to keep it all in one software. I find it very easy to just kind of stick to that entire workflow area and just kind of focus on that. So you can see what I did there, and yes, in fact, go. So let's just see here. I'm not sure why the video has been frozen up here again. I'm probably just off screen doing something else. So let's just continue on here. selecting some of the branches, you can see that sometimes cylinders, I mean, they're very easily unwrapped, and that's why I think that this unwrapping section really isn't the most educational. I have other UV mapping tutorials on my channel, but they aren't very good, to be honest. I don't really like the old stuff I did. I should go back and remake them. I kind of feel like I should make the other ones, delete them and make new ones, but we'll see if I have time doing that. It takes quite a bit of effort doing these, but yeah. So as you can see, I'm using the pitting again here a lot, because I found that, you can see on my checkers are very uneven. If you didn't know, the checkers are what you use to see how good your UV distortion is, to see how good your UV spacings are, and you can see that now I have a bit more even. It's still not very even. The stuff in the middle has the least space, which is actually just exactly what you don't want. So I'm trying to move stuff around here, moving individual vertices. You want to move individual ones, because if you move multiple ones, when it unwraps, it's going to unwrap everything. So you really just want to go ahead and do individual ones. So here I'm going to go in with the interactive UV unfold tool, and that'll just kind of relax it. And now it looks kind of a bit better, yes. And the caps here, you can see that the ending portion of the branch and stuff, you'll get a lot of those when making some model like this. And here I'm just I selected all of those faces there just to see how much I'd actually done, just like prospectively, just to make sure that I was still on track and, you know, doing fine. So, and you want to keep, you see that this is just working fine. I don't really have anything super to say about that. Doing some slight pinning there. Not sure if that was actually necessary. I mean, stuff like this it really isn't that big of a deal. You have some distortion, as I might have said, but I mean, I'm kind of a perfectionist. I'm trying to get it as little as possible. I mean, I'm probably not getting enough. I mean, probably getting way more than I should as well, because I'm not very super good at this, but still. So I'll just cut this off now and kind of wait to when I've finished doing all the pieces, because they're basically the same as this. So let's just do that. So here we are. This is going to be the start of the layout process. You can see that all of my pieces are in place, and well, actually most of them are. So let's just, yeah, I think there's some. There we are. Yes, we have a lot of pieces in place now. Indeed. So I think there's still some. There we are. Okay, yeah. This is the unfold. This is the layout process. You want to squeeze all of these into a single UV 0 to 1 space, basically a single UV grid. And it can be quite difficult. What I like to do is I like to start with the bigger stuff and scale up to a decent size, and then keep everything related to that. Also, one thing you want to do here is you want to keep all the UV shells at an even size, because, like, if you check on the checkers, that sounds dumb. If you look at the checkers on the model, you want to try and keep all the checkers equally sized on all the different parts. Like, I'm not talking distortion-wise. I'm talking like actually equal size, so that you get an equal quality on all the pieces. Also keep all the, I mean, maybe it's obvious, but keep all the kind of really straight parts, which are mostly what this model is. Try to fill up the edges first. That's what I do, and don't try and keep too close to the edge. I mean, that's never a good idea. One thing you have to do when doing the UV layout process is it's a lot of redoing. Because it's hard to get it right the first time, and you might have to redo it twice. You might even have to redo it 3 times. But you know, it's just one of those things. You have to have patience. Patience is just so important. And I mean, layouting, I find it's kind of fun. It's kind of like Tetris in a way, kind of like a more mundane, less fun Tetris, but still sort of like Tetris. You get my idea. You place these blocks and fit them together in the best way possible. And while I'm saying you should do this whilst trying to get as little like, let's see here, as equal spacing, like as equal sizing of these as possible. It's alright if you don't have equal size on all of them. I mean, that's just fine. I'm trying to get them as equal as I can, but still while maintaining as much size as I can on the like actual UV space. So rotating it doesn't actually matter if they're straight or not. You can easily rotate them, because I mean, it's you who texture these later on, and having them rotated isn't the biggest deal in the world, to be honest. So let's just see here. We have a lot of these. Let's see. I'm placing these kind of like trying to fill up. You can see I have a lot of pieces left. I'm actually not going to make this the first time through. That's just the way it is. I tend to overscale some of the bigger objects a lot, and then I have to, you know, after realizing that, it gets kind of depressing and I have to redo it. But again, it's just one of those things you have to do, and it looks very nice when it's all done and all laid out and all like fits together. It doesn't My maps never actually super duper fit together, but I try to do the best I can. It's still, again, I'm still a learning. You're always learning in this, like, I guess, industry, although I'm not really part of the industry. I don't like using that word. Makes you sound very smug. But, yeah, you're always learning with 3D. You're never perfect. It's never a point in time where you can say that I know everything about 3D imaginable. That's just not the case. That's just one of the great things about this hobby of mine, or this job of yours, maybe, if you do. Well, I'm not sure why you're watching this. If this is your job, then you're probably way better than me. But basically, I find it very fun, very good to learn, because there's always new things to learn, always new things to see and new things to hear, and following those are very fun. Of course, going off on a tangent here isn't the best thing in the world, but this is more, I can't really explain. You can see here I'm scaling it down because I noticed that I didn't have enough space, so I'm scaling some of these down, the bigger parts mainly, and when you scale those down, unfortunately you have to replace basically everything, but I mean, that's just the way of it. It's not the biggest deal in the world, to be honest. So that's what I'm doing here. I mean, this isn't really that much of an explaining thing to do, it's more of a watching thing to do. It's UV layout it's so based on what model you have that it is very, like, if this was a gun model, the UV layout process would be completely different. It would be based a lot more upon, like, using the auto UV tools and then sewing edges and stuff like that. It would be way harder, actually. Organic models are really easy to UV unwrap. I mean, not really, but I mean, they're way easier than, say, mechanical objects, because mechanical objects you can't just use the unfold tool and expect to have success. You want kind of to keep straight edges and stuff like that. So you need to kind of have some more things in mind, but with this sort of stuff, you can keep them all weird and deformed-like, because that's just the best way to do it. And in fact, that's the way we're going to do it, so hey, yeah, that's good. Right, so we're going to, this is indeed, you know, rotating all pieces here. Like, it's alright if you, like, forget what piece is which, because, again, generally, what you want to do when texturing is have the model up in a different window whilst texturing, and then you can just, if you forget what one certain piece of your UV map is, you can just, you know, check it in the model viewer later on, so that's, you know, just perfectly fine like that. It doesn't actually matter too much. So let's see what I'm doing here, trying to place these, just fine. I'm trying again, I know I mentioned this at the start of the video, well, start of the layout process, and don't push them super duper close to the edge. I've noticed that, I've done that a lot of times before, like, noticed that, oh yeah, I can save a lot of space by actually putting this, like, on the edge of the UV grid. No, that's not a very good idea. I try to keep a small threshold, but still a threshold to keep things balanced, because if you keep it super close to the edge, stuff tends to cut out, and then you have to replay stuff, and it's just not fun, because, yeah, it's really not the best of idea. So here we have it almost complete. We have some pieces left, but it is, I mean, it's looking fairly alright. It's not the best UV map you've ever seen in the world, I'm sure, but I mean, it works fine for this. I managed to work with it just perfectly, and I mean, that's basically what we want to do, isn't it? Yes, indeed it is, bro. So let's see here. We have this little bit here. I mean, you can see that a lot of the shapes here, which you'll notice here, are very similar, basically just because of the way the model was constructed. A lot of pieces, I mean, it's a tree. Trees are cylindrical in nature, so don't be surprised that there are a lot of cylinders here, which is, again, as I've said multiple times now, it's a very shame, because I kind of want to show a more intricate modeling UV map process. I do believe I have a UV mapping on. Actually, no, I don't have that. I didn't UV map the gun model that I put on seed test. That's a shame. I should do that. UV mapping guns is fairly tedious. It's less fun than organic things, definitely. I think that, but it is something that has to be done, and it's definitely more intricate than this stuff. Also, important thing to keep in mind while laying out stuff, keep things that you see, like the important stuff of the model, keep that very big. Give it more space than the rest of it, because stuff that you don't see, well, you don't need a lot of space for, and stuff that you do see, you do need a lot of detail. So it's very logical to do that. So I mean, it's very basic UV mapping this. So we're very close done here, and let's just see here. We will UV unwrap, and that's will basically be it. In the next video, I will show you how it looked finally while baked. All I did was take it into Xnormal and bake the maps, and I will show you how it looks in Marmoset 2-bag, which was when I rendered the final render. So, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. And as you can see, here is the final model, completely done and stuff in Marmoset 2-bag. Done a few quick render type stuff, just make it look a bit fancy. And yes, this is in fact the model. It is quite, you know, I'm fairly happy with it. It went out quite well. And there's some small issues with it, but yeah, I quite like it. And the final render I will put on at the end of this video with some royalty-free music. Yeah, that's right, to make it look a bit better. Never mind the pot, I know there's some lighting issues with that. It's been a while since I used this file, and I kind of forgot where I put the texture for it, so never mind that. But yes, in fact, this is indeed, you know, the final product, so that's all very nice and good. So thanks for watching this series, everyone, and I will see you in my next videos.